Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Pestrogen podcast with Jenny and Jerusha.
Hi friends, welcome back to Pestrogen. It's our third episode today. Rockstars and rookies. We're going to be talking all about training and trainees and the crazy shit that they say and do and what our experiences are with training. Jenny, have you done a lot of training?
I did my second year. So I did, I'd say 15 to 20 people in that range around that time. So not as of late, but I definitely...
but some experience.
Yeah.
So we'll tell some of our stories. We'll share some stories from the different Facebook groups that we're a part of, and talk about this wonderful training experience that so many of us have had. But before I get ahead of myself, how was your week in the field?
It was all right. Not very long days. Nothing too dramatic happened except for some snow and ice and lots of that. So yeah, just long work days. Nothing too crazy. How about you?
Yeah, kind of same. Long week. We got some crappy weather too. I got the worst weather on the day that I had to drive the farthest. So halfway
Ouch.
through my hour-long drive, my commute doubled because of snow and ice. But it was around here. It melts as soon as the sun comes up. Snow doesn't stick around very long around here. So by the time I was driving home, it was fine.
That's
But
awesome.
on that day, I did have kind of a funny run-in with a customer. So I have a fast food restaurant, and it's in a smaller town, and so I've gotten to know them pretty good. I think I've had this route for like 7 months, I think. So I've gotten to know them pretty well. I've had to do some extra services because they have some issues going on. And there's this older gentleman that always, every time I walk in, he makes some comment about, like, he'll ask me to spray the spray right into his mouth to get him out of here, or, tell me that his friends are the pests that I'm here to catch, whatever. So he works there, but it's a small town, and so there's a group of old men that meet there every morning and have like coffee together. I assume it's every morning because they're always there when I'm there. So he is also an older man, so he hangs out with them, and then he'll go back to work, and then he'll go back and chat with his buds, and then he'll go back to work. So this time, the last couple times, he said, like, as I'm leaving, he'll be like, well, don't go cheating on me. I'm like, sir, you could be my father. So his buddy said something to me, and his buddy was saying, like, how this guy, the employee, is the pest, and I should try and get rid of him. And I was like, oh, sir, I've been trying. I'm not having any success. And so he's like, hey, don't you go cheating on me with him. And I was like, okay, calm down. Everybody here is 90 but me. So I went to work, and like, again, he comes back and forth. So he'll be like, what are you finding? What's going on? And then he'll go and hang out with his buds for a minute. So at one point I was trying to go back up to the front, and he was coming to the back, but like there's only room for one person. So he had to kind of scooch out of my way. And as I walked past him, he goes, you and me are going to end up together.
Oh no.
And I was like, sir, how much money do you make? And he was like, look around, it's not good. And I was like, I'm sorry, but your chances are very slim. If I'm gonna marry an old dude, it's gonna be because he's got tons of money. And he's got a cook standing right there. The cook's laughing his ass off, and he's like, no, come on, we're gonna end up together. I'm like, no, sir, you cannot. You can't afford to make me a stay-at-home wife, so your chances are slim. But then, yeah, as soon as I was ready to leave, he's like, don't you go cheating on me now. Like, okay. He's married.
That's hilarious. I'm dead. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I have I was thinking about it though. I kind of have like a group. I've got groupies, but they're all
yeah.
like retirement age or older.
Right.
Be like, me and you, we're gonna end up together, sir. You could be my grandfather, and you don't have enough money for that.
That's too funny. You say, I know there's no such thing as a threshold of 0, but today there is. Zero chance. That's great.
Yeah, it was kind of cute.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Well, you and me are gonna end up together.
Speaking of creeps, so one of my training stories was actually my first trainer ever. So they send me out with a guy. He pulls up to pick me up that day. I could tell from the minute he looked at me that there might be some weirdness going on.
So wait, he was training you or you were training him?
He was training me. Okay. My very first day on pest control. Like, gotcha. I've been at this point. I had been to the branch and did some training videos, blah blah blah. But this was the first time out on the field. Yeah.
Okay.
Which, come to find out later, he had only been in pest control himself for like 6 months, and yeah, I don't know if I think he just happened to be the closest person to me for that week or whatever. So anyway, I go out with them. The first 2 days were okay; they were fine. But then on the third day, we're in this like super fancy McMansion area, and there's a driveway that leads up to the house, and it's kind of steep. Well, we were backing down, like for that company, you're supposed to park on the road, the company that I worked for then, but the driveway was long, so I get it. But he was backing down the driveway, and he was trying to tell me a story. Oh, hello. And he's trying to tell me a story. And as he was backing down this driveway, he's too involved in his story and trying to look cool in front of me that he ends up backing into like what is that called? Like a construction vehicle that was parked there for the day. They're going to come back tomorrow and work. Yeah.
No.
So I saw it in the rear view camera, like right before I went, stop. And like he hit it, and he pulls up and he gets out and he looks, and I get out, this is my third day on the job. I get out and I look. The construction vehicle was not damaged in any way, shape, or form at all, but there was a little dent on his bumper. So we get back in, and he's like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Whatever, just don't say anything. So I'm like, oh God, now you're putting me like, I went home that day, like
3.
Yeah, I went home that day so like terrified because
oh my God.
I didn't know if he was going to be my trainer until I ended up on my own or what. And I didn't want to so I had to do some like deep soul searching that night. But, the next day that I saw him, we went out, and I asked him a few times, like, hey, you should probably just mention something. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
You should probably just speak up, And what ended up happening was the service manager came out, and because apparently he was teaching me wrong things, which I won't go into that, which he was. But they moved me to a different trainer after that. But when that service manager came out, he was also military, and they were really close. So yeah, I ended up saying like, hey, you should just tell him about it. He'd be super cool about it. Mm-hmm. And then next thing I know, I think a couple meeting days later, I saw them out there with like a fix-a-dent thing trying to fix it. But yeah, but that was great. Nothing like having a fender bender happen on your third day, but then being told not to say anything. I'm like, I don't like that.
We had a kid that I trained in, and he had experience. And if at the company I was at, if you were brand new, in Colorado, you can work under somebody else's license.
Mm-hmm.
So but you have to show a certain amount of hours of training that they provide you. So not
Okay.
everybody is licensed. So they'll get out in the field and they're not licensed yet,
Right.
if at all. But this kid was, and he had worked at another company, and so he only was going to get, I think we trained for like a week before he was going to take over his route, because he knew what he was doing. I just had to kind of teach him. I think we used Pest Pack. I had to teach him Pest Pack. I had to teach him, our way of doing things, and then set him loose.
Yeah.
And in training, he was fantastic. I was like, dude, he's awesome. He's gonna do great. He's a little quiet, a little reserved, but would open up, would talk to customers like no issues. And so he got out on his own, and he took an account of mine. He went to an account of mine that had been a problem account, and the manager like jumped down my throat the first time that I was there, and like I'd been fighting to get on his good side the whole time and like turn things around because the previous technician had been really bad. And then this kid went there and did exterior only, but it was a restaurant. We're like,
no.
dude, you can't do that at a restaurant.
No.
And so over the next few weeks of him being on his own, like he kept doing that, and he was just getting all these weird calls that he was doing exterior only at places you can't do exterior only, or they didn't ask for exterior only. But then when he was confronted, he would lie about it. And then I think at one point, like they realized he hadn't been taking chemical as much as he should have. So they're like, what are you spraying? Are you even putting chemical out? Because you've been here however many weeks, and we've only issued you one bottle of Suspend, which is not a huge bottle.
No.
And so he was like defending that and did all of the math correctly, but doing the math correctly, he should have taken multiple bottles in that amount of time, and like just wasn't needing to fill up on bait, wasn't needing to fill up on spray. And they were like, what are you doing?
Right.
So finally we at that company, we worked 4 days. So you got 1 day off a week. And then if you needed, nobody was off on Mondays or Fridays, but if you needed a Monday or Friday off, you could take it off by working your regular day off. So like I was off on Tuesdays, I could work Tuesday to have Friday off. So he did that. So he was off Friday, and then Thursday checked out, everything was good, completed all of his work orders, had Friday off, and then Monday he just didn't show up for work. He never clocked into his first work order. And then like midway through the day, the office was like, he hasn't completed a single work order. And so they started calling him, couldn't get a hold of him, called his emergency contact. His girlfriend couldn't get a hold of her. Hours and hours and hours, they're trying to find this kid and figure out what's going on. And eventually they get a hold of the girlfriend, and she says that he's sick. And they're like, okay. So they go to his apartment because they're concerned. Like, this is a small company. We don't have that many people. They go to the apartment and they find he totaled his van on Thursday in the middle of the day, finished his route, and just went home and hid for the weekend, and then didn't go back to work on Monday. And they were like, what the fuck? And he was like, well, I've been in the office so many times and I know I'm on thin ice. And they were like, well, right, but like all you had to do was tell us that you crashed it. We would have called insurance, and you would have gotten a slap on the wrist. We were not happy about it, but like you wouldn't have been fired had you just reported the accident. But now
you can't just hide it.
Yeah. And somehow like the cops were called, and the cops said he was at fault, and he was trying to argue and say that he wasn't, because it was something like, I think somebody was backing out and he like drove into them, and so he was trying to say it was the other guy's fault, but the cops said no, it was your fault. So an at fault accident, and he just was like, I'm just gonna hide. Like, what?
That's no.
You didn't think they were gonna come looking for their vehicle?
Right. Honesty is always the best policy.
Yeah,
Like, it
so
doesn't
at that
matter what
point-
you do.
Yeah. At that point, they had no choice but to fire him. And they said, had you told us Thursday, you would still have a job. You'd be on like probation because you can't do that, but like you would still have a job. Because I asked them, they were telling me the story, and I was like, if he called you, like, would you have fired him? And they were like, no, we wouldn't. We would have, called the insurance, moved on. But
Right.
he hit it, and so they went there, and then they had to, I don't remember if they had to have it towed or if they could drive it back. It was like the window smashed, the door was all messed up. I mean, it was
Oh gosh.
it was a van, and it got creamed pretty good.
Yes.
But yeah,
Oh,
like if you
wow.
have an accident at work, all they're gonna do is make you take a drug test probably and
Yeah.
call the insurance company.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Wild.
That's wild. That's I don't think I was in training at this time, but it was very shortly after training because they didn't have enough work for me that day, but they had me follow another lady to her route to work with her. So it must have been around training time. But we were on the highway and I was following her and another car cut and hit her on the side. She was driving a van and I was driving a truck, but I watched the whole accident happen and then like I pulled off with her, of course, and the police got called and stuff. But it's wild how accidents like that happen so fast because the cop and the guy that hit her were turning to me because I watched the whole thing. I was right behind it. And I'm just like, I don't know. A red car came out of nowhere and hit her. And he was saying that somebody basically ran him off the road, which caused him to hit her.
Gotcha.
And I was just like, I don't know. Help.
Yeah. Well, you don't know to be looking for that kind of stuff because it's so unexpected and it just comes out of the blue and then like,
yeah,
what the fuck just happened?
Right. It was terrifying.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So what's your like craziest training somebody else? What's the craziest thing somebody has said to you while you're training them in? Or just not necessarily said, but like what's the weirdest trainee you had?
The weirdest trainee I had, I would have to say, was a super sweet guy. I freaking loved him. And the company loved him because he was really good at sales. So, of course, the company is going to nurture that. Mm-hmm. But when I was taking him out on training and everything, he was picking up the job itself, the physical parts of the job. But he was basically illiterate. Aww. So, yeah, right? And, like, he's so sweet. He's super smart. But when it came to reading labels and then filling out tickets, like, it was very hard. So then he ended up trying to do, like, voice to text through but I remember turning to management and saying, like, we need to help him. We need to help him before he goes out on his own. Because you need to be able to read the label. You need to be able to,
It's kind of a big part of the job.
Absolutely. And then the tickets need to be concise because even when he was doing, like, the voice to text, he wouldn't be like, and blah, 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 period. It was just, like, one run on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then I would be like, hey, read this back. Like, let's read this together. This is not what should go on a service ticket or whatever. So that was crazy because I loved him so much and he was doing so good. And the management, I do believe, ended up pushing past my wishes of not letting him go out on his own. And he did, which he was very successful at adding on different services for whatever. But it always was in the back of my mind, like, that's not good. Like, and I had hoped that they had maybe done something to help him with that or whatever. Yeah. But that was a crazy situation just because it was such a moral confliction of, like, I love you, you're awesome, but this isn't safe.
But are you going to be good? Yeah. Are you going to be able to perform the job?
Exactly.
That's
and
crazy.
I think that's,
poor guy.
You're right. And that's the hard position trainers are put in sometimes, where you're getting to know this person, conflicting personalities, or you love their personality, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the job. So Yep.
Well, and you have to. So I worked at a small company, and I was the head trainer there, and oh my God, I felt like Black Widow or something, because trainees were just dropping like flies. Like, I literally had one kid make it. He got fired at the end of his first day because, and it was valid. And I just remember, I mean, he was cool. We had a good time in our one day together, but he was not trainable. Like, he had worked for another company, and he didn't necessarily know the laws. He just knew that other company's way of doing things. So the whole time I'm trying to teach him our way, he's telling me that I'm breaking laws that I'm not actually breaking. It's just, that's what your previous company preferred. But just because that's how they taught you to do it doesn't mean that that's legal. Doesn't mean that you're not allowed to do it different ways. And there was a lot with him. Like, he brought this massive lunch bag, and just all day was like, what time is lunch? What time is lunch? What time is lunch? And I was like, sir, you've done this before. Like, we probably don't even have lunch. Like, we have grab some snacks and eat them on the way to the next stop. And so at one point I think we were going to a gas station, and he was like, so, like, do I have time to sit down and eat my lunch? And I was like, well, no, not really. Like, we're kind of running behind because training slows me down, where I have to explain things. And and so I was like, we're kind of running behind, and like, I really want to get us caught back up. So like, the only way that you'd be able to sit and have a lunch is if you skip this service with me and I just do it alone. And I didn't mean that's what you should do. And he took it as, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to go warm up my spaghetti dinner and sit and eat with a fork. Like, that's not, you're in pest control. And he'd been in pest control before. I can't remember how long, but I was like, dude, if you need a fork to eat your food, it's just not going to happen. And so that was one of the things, but he wouldn't listen to me. He was correcting everything that I was saying. He kept saying, well, at my last company, and that was our local competition. And so I went back to the office afterwards, and he left and went home. And there was another technician was like, what'd you think? And I was like, I hate him.
Yep.
He's not gonna, or I didn't say I hate him, but I was like, it went horribly. Like, this is gonna be rough. And then the boss came down, and I was like, no, he's terrible. And the other technician was like, oh, I thought you were kidding. And I was like, no, listen. And so I told this other technician, and I wasn't trying to get homie fired, but they called him and were like, yeah, no, this isn't gonna work. Like, after his first day. And then he sent me he was like harassing me via text for a while. Like, he was sending me just really awful stuff, like saying that I did it on purpose, that I lied, that I made up stories about him, or like, he tried to say that the lunch thing, like, he misunderstood because he's hard of hearing. Just whatever. And then a couple weeks later, he tried to reapply, and they denied him like right away. And then he started up again and was sending me texts and cussing me out and calling me names and telling me it's my fault he can't feed his kid. And I mean, it was, I felt like shit, but like,
that's rough. Yeah.
I didn't make the decision. I didn't have the power to fire people. Yeah. I just told my honest review of this kid. I told the owner, like, here's how our day went. Not promising, and the owner decided, like, we're not going to move forward with this.
Yeah. Yep. That's when I went to my current company and rode with my now service manager. One thing that I do a lot is when I'm learning, I like to say, well, I used to do this. What do we do? So I remember being like, hey, PSA, when I mention that, that's not like me being a douchebag saying like, oh, well, I'm smarter than you because we
Yeah.
did it this way or whatever. But I know from training that there are those people though that are like, well, I did it this way.
Yes,
and they're
but there's
very
a definite
firm.
difference
Yes.
between
And
saying, well, my last company used this chemical. What do we have that I should be
right.
using instead? Or, yeah,
Right.
we used to do this process. How do we do it? And what's
Yes.
our way of
Yeah.
doing things?
I remember working with or training with my service manager. And I'm not saying this just because he discovered about the podcast. And
I'm not saying this just because he's listening and I
this
need
is
a
for
raise.
real. This is for real, boss man. It was probably the best training experience I ever had. There was probably a few times where I was like, well, we used to do blah, whatever. And I would just get a look like, what? What did you do? And I'm just like, don't judge me.
Yeah, it's not. That's how I was taught.
I didn't come up with this, man.
That's
But
funny.
that also reminds me of what Rachel Williams told us. She said, my favorite thing about training new technicians who have never been in the pest control experience is when they say, what time will we be done today?
Or just in general, when people are like, what hours do you work? I work from my first service ticket to my last service ticket. Like, what do you
Right.
mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we have no idea when we're going home tonight.
Nope. Yep. And I really do think it is a big chain corporation thing about the lunch thing. Like I personally 1,000,000% get where you're coming from with that, but I think some listeners might be like, wow, that's kind of harsh, but when you're in those shoes where, it's hard to explain, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and I don't think that's like super harsh, but, some people might be like, man, that's a slave driver. But especially with routes that have a lot of drive time in between them, or commercial settings where you're stomping pavement inside and outside, and it's a go.
I've been trying to be more mindful of that now, and like in my current route, there's days where I'm lucky if I even have time to scarf something down on the drive to my next stop, but I'm trying to be really mindful on days that are a little bit more relaxed to like stop and eat my food in a parking lot somewhere, or like whatever. But I actually think I had a harder time when I did residential, because residential is so strictly scheduled that you might have somebody every 30 minutes, and a 15-minute, even just stopping to go to the bathroom, can throw off the rest of your day. So I feel like I probably, doing just commercial now, I probably could take more lunch breaks than when I had residential, or even, combined commercial, residential, whatever. Yeah. That's why I like doing residential.
Yeah. My first year doing residential, I got a customer complaint because I pulled up to the stop 15 minutes early, and I parked kind of down the way, but I sat and ate my lunch. And then I backed up and parked in front of their house or whatever, but they called and complained.
I had a guy, I did the same thing, only I did park in front of him, and I kind of held my phone up so that it would look like I was doing paperwork too, and scarfed something down really fast, and he came outside and was going like this, and I was like, no, I see you, I know that I'm at your house, give me a fucking minute. And I wasn't late, I'll be there. You've got a 2-hour window.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's hard.
Crazy. Yeah, the Katrina said the one about Katrina's was, I briefly trained a guy brand new to the industry, was terrified to hold the equipment even after I explained why we use PPE and how it protects us. I ran a route of multifamily apartments in downtown, and he kept asking about food. I offered to stop at a gas station so he could grab a quick bite. He refused. No, I mean going out to eat. And she said, a sit-down meal? Yeah, where are we going and when are we going to eat? I paused. Brother, we don't have time for a sit-down meal. Again, I can offer you one of my protein bars or stop at a gas station so you can get snacks. No, that's okay. The next day, he was expecting the manager to take him to, you guessed it, a sit-down meal at a local cafe. Boss man said, no, we don't have time for that. Same routine. The new guy quit a few days later. Yeah, a sit-down meal. It's just so few and far between that you're going to have time to ever do that. But much less to expect it multiple days, like with different trainers. Like, did you just...
Yep.
What? Why?
Yep. And I did have a trainer my second go around with that first company that did, he meticulously had a thing where he had to go somewhere nice and eat some food. Like this guy, he pushed through and whatever. But when I got hired on, I was super broke because I just moved and stuff. And he's like trying to go to Chipotle and stuff. And I'm like,
and you're like,
dude,
I barely have gas station.
Yeah.
Money.
And by the fourth day, he was like, I was like, I packed a lunch. And he's like, well, you make me feel bad, you know? And I was like, dude, I'm not rich. Like, I can't, I can't eat this stuff like Skyline chili every day or whatever, you know?
I had a trainer like that too, but his was, he didn't necessarily have to have a sit down lunch, but he had to have like, we are stopping hourly though. That was the difference. I was working on commission. He was a trainer on a, he was like, they did training, they did like technician support. I think they were called tech support back then, but they were on a team that was hourly. So they did expect a 30-minute break. So he was helping me because I had an injury. So I was in a walking boot and he was helping me just so I could, you know, get my shit done. And I do remember he helped me for about a week when I came back from my injury. And every day he'd be like, well, where are we headed for lunch? And I was like, bro, I can't,
come on.
I don't have time for this shit. I can't afford this shit. But he was sweet. And he would, like one time it was just like gas station pizza, but like we sat for half an hour and ate our gas station pizza. So like the price, he was fine. He didn't need anything fancy. But I'd be like, you are killing me. Like, this is 30 minutes that is completely unpaid. Like, can I get back to work, please? Like, I got a long day, but he was hourly, so that was his thing.
This is random, sorry, but have you ever had, I don't know if you're a smoker, but have you ever had a trainer or trainee that is like a chimney that wants to stop every 5 seconds and smoke?
I don't know that I have, to be honest. I think I've had a couple that took breaks, but never like that. Never way over the top.
One of my first trainers was like that. And it's just like, oh my goodness gracious. Let's go to the next stop. I get it. You're going to be irritable. But I want to go home.
Though, like... With vaping, like, I'll be talking to my branch manager and he's just, like, vaping away. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, this is weird. So I think with vaping now, there's people that, like, don't stop vaping. But I never had any that were.
Don't make me stop my work.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying. Now it's everywhere. But, like, the smoking. I've worked with a couple that had to go and take breaks, but never anything too crazy. And I always try to, like, tell people, like, hey, you need a restroom stop, you need a gas station stop, you need a smoke break. Like, you just tell me, because I don't smoke, so I'm going to take breaks when I need them. Tell me when you need a break and we'll...
Right. And I'm not judging because I was a smoker for 10 years.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Getting into pest control... I quit before
this industry.
I quit when I joined this industry because I was in manufacturing settings and the peer pressure was really hard. Every time I quit, it's like, go out on break. Oh, you want one or whatever, you know, but once I got out into my own vehicle, I'm just like, sweet, I got this.
Especially since most of them you can't smoke in the vehicle.
Yes.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And that did make the difference with that trainer too, because it was a company where, like, if a client had called in and said, oh, I saw your employee smoking, it would have been a big deal. So that was a thing too, where they wanted to smoke all the time, but we also had to hide. And it's just like, oh my gosh.
Well, and then you're going into people's houses and, like, even if you don't think that you stink, you stink. Yeah. I smoked for I don't know how. I smoked for a long time, at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, we always thought we didn't stink because we sprayed ourselves down and did mints and whatever, but like we stunk. You stink if you smoke. You can't really get rid of the smell completely.
Yeah.
So
to this day, it still smells good to me, but
yeah, I like it. I like it because I didn't. When I quit, my fucking kids came up to me. They were little and cute, and they were like, "Mommy, please stop smoking." And I was like, "Fuck, fine." So like, I didn't want to quit.
Right.
I quit because they were cute and I love them.
Aww.
So when I smell cigarettes, I'm still like, kind of miss it a little bit.
Me too, but I'm glad I stopped still.
Yes, me too.
Yes.
Me too. I wouldn't start up again.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you ever trained a woman? Well, you said you trained with a lady. I trained one. I've only gotten to train one girl, and it was Sam. We still keep in touch. She's incredible. She was the best trainee I ever had. She also had, like, I think she had, like, more experience than I did. So I was really, again, I was just teaching her the system. She was going to take over what was my route. So I was kind of more, like, introducing her to people and showing people around. I wasn't really training her. And a lot of times I would start to say something and she'd like finish my sentence for me. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I forget. Like, you already know what you're doing. But she was the only one of, I guess I've had a couple that didn't, but like one of the only trainees that wasn't like, well, actually the way I do it, or like, well, isn't it, you know, like,
yeah.
all of the guys, most of the guys, you know, would correct me, even guys that didn't have experience would correct me on stuff. And I'd be like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. Sam was literally the only trainee that didn't do that. And so we just like had a really good time, talked shit. Awesome. Like, yeah, it was super fun.
Aww,
where I think I had a story about that. Is it Amore Rose? I think online it says like Armored Rose. I never really know how to say her name.
I don't either.
You know who I'm talking about though?
But she's awesome, yeah.
I think it's Armored Rose on
I think so. Yeah.
PCHD. Yes. Anyway, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. We think you're the coolest.
We love you.
Her story is that I recently had the pleasure of training another woman. The one thing that weirded me out on day one was when we stopped at the gas station to use the bathroom. I was being followed into the bathroom. I forgot we used the same one. Scared me for a second. She was cool though, not scared to get dirty and crawl around anywhere I went.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you don't expect that. It's usually guys.
Yeah.
Actually, one time I had a trainee, one of my other favorite trainees. We had a good time. I think it was his first day. We were at like a warehouse and he was hired to be the heat technician, but they weren't busy enough for that to be all that he did. So he was kind of a fill-in also. So they sent him out with me to train him on the actual like pest control side of things. And so we were at this warehouse one day and we were finishing up and there's like office up front, warehouse out back. And so we were walking back to the office spot and there's a bathroom right here. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to run and use the restroom and then we'll head out front, grab a signature, and we'll be done. And so I walk into the restroom and he follows me in. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I like physically push him out. And I was like, I just said I'm using the restroom. I'm using it. Like, we're not treating the restroom. And he's like, oh my God, I thought this was like the door to the warehouse or to the office. And like freaked out. He was mortified afterwards. And then later we talked about it and he was like, I thought I was fired for sure. Like I went home and told my dog that I'm getting fired because I followed my trainee into the bathroom. And I was like, no, like I knew it was a mistake. I didn't tell anybody. Like I didn't actually go, you know, we got you out of there on time.
Right. Yeah. That's like with me and my current boss man when he was training me. We would split up to go to the bathrooms and like, I'm like, man, I know I'm gonna take longer than him because I have to pull my whole pants down and stuff. So
Yeah.
then, like, when I pop out the bathroom, I'd be like, huh, where'd he go? I'm scared. I'm in this
Do I
big
wait
place.
here? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so awkward too. So
So weird.
I feel like a child lost in this nursing home now. And I'd see him over by the door looking at me like, right here.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There you are.
Help, Dad! Where'd you
That
go?
happened to me the other day with not the restroom, but with an escort. He was like, "Oh, I'll have to escort you on the interior, but like you can do the exterior by yourself." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." But then we were having like a good conversation, and so he was like, "I'll just come with you," and then like I had to go this way to get a bait station, and then I started going that way, and then he disappeared, and I was like I lost my escort, so I didn't know like should I just keep going? Like
Yeah.
did he just was over the conversation, but then he like
Right.
popped up somewhere else, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I lost you. But I'm awkward like that too. I never know if I should like go looking for them or just stand
Yeah.
around waiting for them to come back.
Yep. Too great. Yep. Actually, recently, I guess I was technically training him, but he's already been trained, but he was going to take my route. But we were at a facility that is like a food safety type facility, and I went to the bathroom, and I told him I went to the bathroom, but I don't think he heard me. So he wandered out into an area where he needed to have had a hairnet and stuff.
Oh, no.
And he got yelled at in like 2
Right
seconds. Yeah. And he was so upset when I got out of the bathroom. He's like, oh, I was just looking for you. And I was like, I'm sorry. Well, he was more upset that he got yelled at because he wasn't even like in there. But yeah, it was
but he just
great.
didn't know what he was doing.
Yes.
I had one once that was one of the most interesting trainees I've had. And he was this super young kid. And he started at like, one of those residential only, they only do exterior, like a Donnie and Marie type. Mm-hmm. He had come to us from one of those and was going to we were a commercial branch. So he was going to take a commercial route. Nice. And he, at that company, they would pay like 50 cents more an hour for every license that you got. So he was licensed in fucking everything, which good for you, man.
Right.
And here we have, you can be just an operator or you can be what's called a qualified supervisor. So qualified supervisor is just like, that's what you would need if you wanted to start your own business.
Right.
Every branch or every pest control company needs at least one of those. And then you can have so many people work underneath those unlicensed. So companies want qualified supervisors so they can hire unlicensed people to work. So he had all of his QSs and he got all of these licenses without ever having done the actual work. So like he had one in wildlife. And so I was like, oh, I'd love to pick your brain. Like I don't have a ton of wildlife experience. And he's like, oh, I've never done trapping. And I was like, what? Even I've done trapping. I just am not like super well versed in it. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I've never done any of that. And I was like, but they hired you because you have like 10 QSs. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm good at taking tests. Like, oh. So you're useless is what you're saying. You don't know how to do any of these things. You just know how to study for a test.
Yeah, you're knowledgeable, but you're not experienced.
Yeah, yep. So he had he couldn't give me any advice on trapping raccoons because he'd never trapped a raccoon before. He just had the highest license in trapping raccoons that you could get. So I only was with him for one day because he was training in a different area. They just didn't have anywhere to send him this one day. But it was his very first day of actual training in the field. So, he'd done his paperwork, his videos, whatever. So we go out in the field and I find that piece of information out first. And then later in the day, we go to an apartment complex where they want your driver's license to give you keys to the apartments. And they wanted both of ours. So I was like, oh, like, I just got to run to the truck and grab mine. And so I come back and he's standing there waiting for me, and he goes, do I have to give them my driver's license? And I was like, well, yeah, they're, once you're on your own, like, just get used to it, because a lot of apartments will ask for your license to give you keys, and then just to ensure that they know who's on their property, who's in these places, and just that you have a reason to bring those keys back. And he's like, I've worked really hard to keep my information off of the internet, and what if they sell my information to the dark web? And I was like,
what?
I mean, they're apartment managers, so that's probably not their side gig. I wouldn't think. And, like, I don't think that that's something that we need to worry about. And he's like, I don't think that I should have to give them my license. And I was like, well, if you go to a bank, if you go to somewhere that is secure, these apartment complexes, like, you're going to have to give your driver's license. Like, they're going to scan it, whatever. And he's like, I've worked really hard I am not on the internet. And I was like, okay. And he kept going. And he's like, you don't even know my real name. And I was like, what? And he's like, that's like the name. I changed my name, and I've disappeared. You'll never find me. I'm not a person. Like, I legally am who I say I am, but because I legally changed it. And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, there's people that are after me. Like, you are 22 years old. Like this skinny, like the geekiest guy I've ever seen in my life. Short, skinny, like, I'm like, and his name was kind of ridiculous. And so I was like, well, that does track. Like, who would name their kid that? Like, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? And he's like, yeah, I think that they're going to sell all of my information to the dark web. And I was like, dude, I don't think that Miranda at Villa Apartments is going to sell your fake name to the dark web. And he was like, she fucking better not. And I was like,
did he have a tinfoil hat?
I sent all of that information to the branch manager. And it was like, dude, I get all of the licensure, but, like, you got to be a little bit more picky with who you're hiring. Like, this kid's a fucking clown. So then, like, an hour or two later, I think it was a Friday. And so I was like, well, what are you and your girlfriend going to do for the weekend? And he goes, oh, well, we're going to lock ourselves in the apartment, and we're going to drop acid all weekend long. I'm like, dude.
Oh, no.
I am training you in at work. Like, should you be telling me these things? Because I'm reporting back to management. Like, what? This is day one. Day one.
Right.
And he's like,
That's
yeah,
weird...
we just love to find a weekend where we have nothing else to do, and we can just lock the door and just drop a bunch of acid all weekend long and just trip all weekend. And I was like, okay, so you're a made up, you're not on the internet, you drop acid every weekend. Like, what? You don't actually know how to do pest control. Like,
right, it's such a weird first impression.
So strange. And then the manager was like, I think he's just trying to impress you. And I was like, dude, I'm in my 30s. I got 2 kids. Like, I don't drink. I don't smoke. Like, what? He's not impressing me. And he already told me he had a girlfriend. Like, I don't think it was that. I think that's legitimately who he was as a person. And he was too young and dumb to know that, like, maybe don't tell somebody that on day one of your new job.
Right. Oh, hey, you should show off your
I
new...
don't have mine.
Oh, no.
It's in the dishwasher.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Fair.
It's very cute, though.
Then I'll show this beautiful face. This is the Spangler tumblers, which we have something planned in the future. A different Spangler product that will be more suitable for what we got going on. That's the only hint I'm going to throw out there. It's the only hint. But thank you, Paula, for making an appearance.
Yeah, I completely forgot mine. It's in the dishwasher. I just did the dishes before I came on, and then it flooded everywhere, and it was like a whole thing.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, wait. So, in other news, in our other favorite group, PCHD, the sweet, wonderful Overlord made a post. And this was the post. It was, he said, call me creepy, but the sight of a woman in a dirty pest control uniform turns me on like nothing else. Happy Valentine's Day, you smoking hot cheese baguettes. You may all say ew now.
And then those
So-
fuckers did say ew.
They did.
Assholes.
They did. Yep. They sure did. But I thought that was a lovely post, for one.
It was so sweet.
It's so sweet. Yeah, because, working in a male-dominated industry, some days we don't feel smoking hot, okay? No. We is still, but...
We are. We absolutely are.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some good comments that people made.
Yeah.
Jeff said, I mean, who else would understand the fucked up shit we do? You're
Right.
damn right.
Right.
Teresa
Thank
said
you.
it takes a strong man to deal with us coming home smelling like sweat, rat pee, and low-income housing.
Yep.
And
I
Brad
think-
said smells like money and determination. Yeah, that's right.
Show does. Show does. Let's see here. Ashter said, my wife likes my uniform.
As
That's
she
right.
should.
Mm-hmm.
Brett
Oh.
said, can't agree more. You know who you are.
That's right. Brett is our homie, our Pestrogen homie, supporter. There we go.
And Rodney. Rodney said, nothing finer than a hard-working lady ready to get into the depths of filth with you. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Super sweet. Love it. But, and not so sweet, somebody said, yeah, you're right, that's creepy. No, it's not.
It's fucking
No, it's not.
You're creepy.
Right? That was a hype post, okay?
And then everybody's favorite misogynistic piece of shit said, creepy.
Yep.
Yeah, we know how you feel about women.
Yeah, you've made that very obvious.
If I had a
Very.
micro penis, I probably would feel the same way.
Matt said, you still have time to delete this. It's not too late.
Somebody did respond to that and be like, why would he delete it?
Yeah, I think it was Jack.
Tard. Was it?
Jack. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jack's
you're right,
whistle.
it was.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah, and then, are we saying names?
First
I'm
names,
saying
I guess.
his name. Tim was
Yeah.
the biggest micro penis of
Oh,
them
yeah.
all. And,
Yes.
like, kept it going. He said, well, I don't know where you guys are from, but where I'm from, they look like the men with long hair, and some of them don't even have long hair. So I don't know what you're seeing there. Women with short hair are so fucking hot, first of all.
Right.
So who cares if they don't have long hair, but I would rather look like a man with long hair than look like you, Tim. And he said, I've never simped over a woman in a PC uniform, but do you, cheerio. And then Brad said something really sweet. I don't have that screenshot. Brad, like, stuck up for women in pest control and was very, very complimentary. And Tim said, well, that's awfully sweet of you, but I can't fap to it. And we all know that's all a woman is good for, right? Just so that
Right.
you can, like, get off to her. You fucking piece of shit.
Right.
I hate misogyny. I hate men that hate women because
Yeah.
they're the ones that act like they're ladies' men and like I just like you don't like women, and if that's how you feel about women, it's probably because you're gay and you just don't want to admit to that. But like, don't be abusive and mean towards women because you feel some type of way about yourself.
Right. It's 2025.
Yeah.
Do you without hating other people. Like, you can
And-
literally do whatever you want these days.
That fucking guy getting off to me is the absolute last thing I would ever want in my life. So that's really not like
Yeah.
the disrespect that he thinks it is. Like, thank you. I'm glad
Right.
that we don't do it for you because gross.
Right.
I don't want to
Yeah.
picture that anyway.
It's the same guy that thinks we kill bugs by talking them to death.
Was it? Was that
Yeah,
him?
that's the same one. Yeah.
Oh, yep, that tracks.
Yep, that's
Big asshole.
Exactly.
If I had a micro penis, I'd probably be a dickhead on the internet too.
Yeah, it's easy to do it on the internet.
It is.
You know, but yep. Oh, and so with that, we do say, bless your heart.
Oh yes, bless your heart, Tim.
Bless
you especially.
Well, bless your heart, cheap little fucker.
Nathan's is kind of funny. I was hired by a woman, trained by another, and have trained a woman now, and I think women can do very well in this field. All trainees pretty much whine about silly things like bathrooms and food. Gina, the lady that trained me, did make it a point to get the gate code for pool houses, so she could use the bathrooms. I thought that was a very good idea. Another female tech used to have a sheepy. Only other difference, I think, is some customers tend to try to bulldog female techs a little bit. So sometimes encouraging them and imparting the fact that they are the expert in the customer pest control professional relationship will go a long way towards helping them establish themselves in the industry. Yeah, I think that goes for new technicians. I think as a female technician, it never really goes away. You just constantly have to educate your customer and let them know that you're not a moron, and that probably will never change because of guys like Tim being in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it helps being underestimated, because when you do show up, everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're amazing.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Chloe said, CFT here. My favorite experience was a gentleman looking at me and saying, I don't want to learn pest control from a girl. It's embarrassing. Safe to say my branch manager let him go on the spot and explained we have a lot of women working here and there's no tolerance for that behavior.
Right.
I've never had anybody say that directly to me, but I did have a trainee that was he just would not listen to anything that I said. I was constantly correcting him, and then he would go back and do the exact same thing I just told him not to do. And so I finally asked my owner, like, I don't know if there's a learning disability. I don't know if, like, there's a different method that he needs, but, like, I'm repeating myself all day, every day, and he's not getting it. It's not sinking in. And the owner was like, you just have to have that conversation. You just have to be honest and ask him, like, you know, are you learning? Is this stuff soaking in? And I did, and he lost his mind. Like, didn't speak to me. We went back to the office, and he called his buddy that worked there and complained about me, and then he called another dude and complained about me. And that guy went up to the owner, and the owner called me into the office and was like, what happened? And I was like, I just had the exact conversation I told you. Like, you told me to have this conversation with this guy, and he just completely melted down. And the owner was like, I don't think he wants to take direction from a woman. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not saying it, but, like, if that's what it is, I think, unfortunately, that's a very real issue for some men. I think that's it for our stories. I think we told all of the stories that people...
I think so, too.
Oh, Rodney said, I trained an amazing female technician named Tori. She was quicker than a whip and faster to jump in with rats and roaches than most of the others I had trained or worked with. Ultimately, she left the industry because of management, but she was the bee's knees. Love to hear it.
The bee's knees. That's awesome. Our favorite Nova Scotia. That's awesome. Yeah, the topic of training and trainees is a difficult one when it does involve women. So it was really cool to see that variation in the stories of either men being trained by women or, that was really eye-opening and cool. I love the input from all the groups. Thank you, everyone. Speaking of input from other people, too, our buddy Sean Muller of Pest Perspectives, he's amazing. He's given us some of our first reviews on Spotify and stuff. Great guy. You guys definitely should check out Pest Perspectives. He's really cool. So.
And we're going to go be guests on another podcast this coming week. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I'm so excited with Beauties and Beasties. They are really cool. I've been listening in to their podcasts. It will be live, and so definitely mark your calendars. Come hang out with us. I believe from what I spoke with them on and stuff, you guys can interact with us and stuff while we're doing it. It's going to be a blast. And
so we'll share those links for sure once we
yes,
and I have them.
I made a fun little Pestrogen picture of them, us all together and stuff too. So I'll be shooting that out there. So definitely mark it on your calendar and come hang out with us on that because that's fun. I'm excited.
And they're like the biggest pest control podcast in the UK, correct? That's what.
Yeah, they've been
I keep
around
seeing.
and I've listened to a lot of the episodes too. It's super cool. I love I think my favorite so far is like their international one where they have somebody from Nigeria and stuff, and that was really cool.
I listened to that one too. And then there was a lady that is a falconer, and she was just cool as shit. I really liked listening to that one. I used to have a food plant that used somebody like that to deal with their pigeon issues that would just bring, I don't know if it was a falcon or a hawk, but would bring a bird of prey in there, and it would just like fly over and like attack a couple here and there, and that controlled the pigeons. Like, that's pretty badass. So they had a lady talking about that being her career. I was like, fuck yes.
That's so cool.
So that's super exciting. That will be on Friday the 21st that we are live there.
Yes.
But then there's recordings too, right? Like because I streamed some of the stuff.
I believe so, yep.
So we'll post that too once that's complete. If you don't get enough of our bullshit here, you can also find it there.
Right? Good stuff. Thank you to all the Facebook groups that are letting me whore us out on them. So I've been stealing your pictures and making funny things and posting it out there. Thanking you guys for letting us get our names out. We appreciate everybody listening. What's our next episode?
Next week, we are going to talk about prepping for pandemonium, getting ready for busy season, because where I'm at, spring is like next month. So we'll start kind of ramping up come March around here. I know in the South, it's probably about the same. And then, by the end of busy season, none of us will even know our own names. So we're going to talk all things prepping. What gets you through busy season? What are you planning ahead? How do you make your days any better? I know my white ass, I'm going to order about a gallon of sunscreen because I know I'm just going to get my ass kicked out there. Yep. But we'll be talking all things busy season because we won't have time once busy season comes.
Right. It'll be too late.
And all bets are off.
Yeah, we're sinking.
So please share your stories. Keep sharing your stories in the groups. If there's something you want to talk about and you want to come hang with us, let us know. We'd love to start having guests on. And we're open to whatever. Anything you want to talk about.
Absolutely.
Let us know.
Yes. Absolutely.
Anything else, Miss Jenny?
I believe that is it, folks.
I think we covered all of the bases.
I think so. Thank you for listening in, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Come back next week.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.